are some wines that you don't really need to talk about much, and yet actually a lot could be said about them. Um, I don't need really to sell Chateau Lynch Bages. It always sells itself. It's extremely popular, and in the last decade it has increased in price massively. Well, actually, the last decade and a half, since the 2005 vintage, even that was good value comparatively. The price of Chateau Lynch Bages has increased and increased and increased. So have other really top Bordeaux wines, but it's really interesting that Chateau Lynch Bages, which has got such a huge Irish connection and is hugely popular in and around outside of France, all the way around the world, should remain so upwardly mobile and yet still in huge demand. It's a really good property. It's old. It's Irish origins. It's Thomas Lynch, who's the son of John Lynch from Galway, late 17th century, 1725, 1724, something like that. They get this land and he starts farming it, and it's now passed on to then his son and so on, and then eventually sells to Swiss merchants, and then in the 1930s, 1938, it's finally bought by the Caz family, who still own it to this day. It's really interesting. There are so many interesting things about Lynch Bages. One of them is that it didn't get bought into by the AXA group, who have huge number of chateaux in their name, and one of the reasons was that the chairman of AXA was a Caz family friend, and actually asked the Caz family for a lot of help in their wine portfolio in the 1980s, and so the Caz family were able to say, yeah, sure, this is what we recommend you should do, and advised, but without ever letting go of control of Lynch Bages, which is a very clever thing to do. So it's still entirely family owned and will probably be so for a long time. Certainly, given the rate that they sell their wines at, it's staggering, the growth in price. This is a really beautiful vintage, 2017. It's still far too young really to drink, and don't get me wrong, I have not consumed it. I will one day, and this is, therefore not my tasting note, but certainly it's something that I would long to have. Other vintages that would be comparable, maybe to 2004, maybe 2006, maybe even 2012 or 14. It's a very loose-knit wine, so it's not very tight-knit and kind of grippy like that. It would be lush, and it should be with lots of baked blackcurrants and blackberries, maybe mulberry, blackberry jam. Really, really delicious flavours, but with this lovely kind of open, not too tense structure. 20 to 25, 30 years of drinking pleasure is what they say. Crikey, the drinking window, thanks to modern technology, of all hitherto inaccessible wines is massively increased, which means that you can drink wines much earlier and much later, and they still have this wonderful set of qualities that make them so desirable. Lynch Bages will often have this kind of typical cassis and almost mint-like note that you get from Cabernet dominant wines. The vineyards are planted 73% Cabernet, 15% Merlot, 10%. How many percent have I got left? 10% Cabernet Franc, 2-ish% Petit Verdot, on this wonderful deep gravelly ridge that is so predominant in Pauillac, with a deep limestone bed as well. So perfect drainage, perfect exposition to the sun and to the weather and the river, southwest. Like you can't really wish for a better place. And as I say, it's hugely desirable. If we had older vintages available, they'd be snapped up all the time. And it's kind of mad. People will spend a lot of money on Lynch, and it's a really interesting wine to have, because it's really high quality, and it's certainly justifiably highly prized. Iconic wines like this, yeah, I absolutely adore them. Any time I've had something on a par with this, I go away thinking, oh wow, that is just so cool. Um, and yet, no, it's amazing. It shouldn't ever must outmuscle other wines and the importance of other wines and other quality levels. But in and of itself, it is very definitely one of a kind.